Verse 21. Trividam narakasahitam dvaram nashanam atmana kama krodas tata lobas tasmad etat trayam tayajat. The go-way of this hell leading to the ruin of the soul is threefold: lust, anger and greed. Therefore these three one should abandon. Kam, lust, krodh, anger and lobh, greed, and are the three gateways of Narak hell. When hell was described earlier, then perhaps one may have the question of how one goes to hell and what the doors are. God says that these are the three doors: lust, kam, krodh, anger and lobh, greed. These three doors to hell lead to the ruin of the soul. They destroy a human being. The word tasmat is used meaning therefore. Sri Krishna says that therefore one should abandon these three: kam, lust, krodh, anger and lobh, greed. Let us think about them spiritually as we are reaching the end of this whole chapter. God described the divine characteristics and the divine endowments at the beginning. 26 qualities were described. If you wanted to summarize and highlight these 26 divine qualities that God described in a nutshell, then they can come in three things: vairagya, non-attachment; titiksha, forbearance; and santosh, contentment. We can look at each and every quality, but they can be summarized into these three. 26 qualities were described by God in the first 3 verses of this chapter, and if you sit at home and think about them in peace, then they can fall into one of these 3 qualities. I've given you some homework. The first quality described was abhayam, fearlessness. What does this fall into? It falls into titiksha, forbearance, which is the attitude of being able to tolerate things. If a person has the quality of forbearance, then they do not have a fear of anything. The second quality is sattvasam shuddhiya, purity of one's inner being. This comes under both vairagya, non-attachment, and santosh, contentment. The third quality described was jnana, wisdom, and comes from vairagya, non-attachment. I say during the Sri Ramacharitra discourses how jnana, wisdom, comes from vairagya, non-attachment. When the makhan, the clarified butter of vairagya, non-attachment, is heated, then the ghee, pure butter, is made. You can split each and every divine quality into one of the vairagya, non-attachment, titiksha, forbearance, and santosh, contentment. All divine qualities can be incorporated into these 3 qualities. In the same way, all the demonic characteristics that God described until now can be incorporated into the 3 doors of Narak hell mentioned in this verse: kam, lust, krodh, anger and lobh, greed. Even with this, if you reread this entire chapter and contemplate about it at home, either today or tomorrow, ideally you should do it today while it is fresh, then when you try to look, then you will see that each and every demonic characteristic will fall into one of these 3. The first demonic characteristic mentioned was dam, ostentation or hypocrisy. This is born from kam, lust, or from lobh, greed. The next demonic characteristic mentioned was darpa, arrogance, which comes from krodh, anger. The third demonic characteristic is abhiman, excessive pride, which again comes from kam, lust. This is the attitude that I want this and I will be big. The fourth demonic characteristic is krodh, anger, which has come itself. The next is puryashya, harsh speech, which results as a result of krodh, anger. This is what it is like. There are many times like this. Every demonic characteristics come from one of these 3: kam, lust, krodh, anger, lobh, greed. There are 3 doors to Swarg, heaven. God has not said that this here, but if we wish to look at them, then there are 3 doors of Swarg, heaven: vairagya, non-attachment; titiksha, forbearance; and santosh, contentment. These are the 3 doors of Swarg, heaven. The 3 doors of hell, Narak, are kam, lust, krodh, anger and lobh, greed. Kam, krodh and lobh do not have their own independent existence. Where do they come from? A lack of vairagya, non-attachment, results in kam, lust. When the feeling of vairagya, non-attachment, goes away from kam, lust comes. Kam means lust and the attitude of grabbing things. Where does this come from? It comes from the lack of vairagya, non-attachment. This is kam, lust. A lack of titiksha, forbearance, results in krodh, anger. If a person does not have the ability to tolerate things, then krodh, anger comes. The more forbearance a person has, then the calmer that the person is. This is why you see that one person gets angry only in hearing one thing, another person gets angry on hearing 5 things, and yet another person gets angry on hearing 11 things. What is growth, anger, and what is getting angry? It is an announcement that now I cannot tolerate this. This is the announcement we make when we raise our voices and make a lot of noise. This is when one loses the attitude of didiksha, forbearance. But when one has a lot of didiksha, or forbearance, then the person will never get angry. A lack of santosh, contentment, results in lobh, greed. When santosh, contentment, goes away from lobh, greed certainly comes. A lack of didiksha, forbearance, results in growth, anger. A lack of didiksha, forbearance, results in growth, anger. And a lack of santosh, contentment, results in lobh, greed. Kam, lust, growth, anger, and lobh, greed are the 3 doors to hell. And I will say one more thing about this verse. Just like I said earlier, whether Swarg, heaven, and Narak, hell, are geographical places or not, we may have doubts about this, but there is absolutely no doubt about one thing, and that is that they are states of mind. What are the doors to Narak that are mentioned? Kam, lust, is a state of mind. Krodh, anger, is a state of mind. And lobh, greed, is a state of mind. Therefore, where do these 3 and the whole of Narak hell get created? It gets created in mind. We get up in the morning, having slept nicely throughout the night, and our minds is fresh. It is a beautiful morning. Peacocks have come to the mango trees, the cuckoos are singing, and the birds are flying. When all of this happens, then it feels as if Swarg, heaven, is right here. But they're in an extra half spoon of sugar in the tea, and one gets angry because they have no diksha, forbearance. Krodh, anger, comes, and the person marches straight to Narak hell. When the door is open, he goes from Swarg, heaven, to Narak hell in 10 minutes. When the person starts shouting and saying, "Is this tea or is it sweet juice? Why have you not made it properly? Do you not know how to make it?" If this person's tea is spoiled, then his morning will get spoiled, and this will happen. Then he gets a telephone call from a person saying that we want to do a deal, and we only want to give the contract to you because you do very good work. This person gets a very big contract. When he gets a nice phone call like this, "Let us meet at our offices at lunchtime. Everything is decided and we will only give it to you. So we are only meeting as a formality." Then when one gets such news, they feel happy and like they are in Swarg, heaven again. They reach back to Swarg, heaven. Then this person says, "Come on quickly, make the food. I have to leave and reach there quickly." The person who is doing the cooking already has tension when he got angry over the tea earlier on. Then he tells her to make the cooking quickly. Then another half spoon of sugar falls into the curry. And when he goes to pick up the spoon to eat the curry, then he gets angry once again and he is back in Narak hell. In just one day, think about how many times we go from Swarg to Narak hell. Narak hell to Swarg, heaven, jumping back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. The reason why these 3 characteristics were clarified is that when the feeling of vairagya, non-attachment, is awakened in us, when we have titiksha, forbearance, and when we have santosh, contentment, then consider that the doors of Swarg, heaven, have opened for us. And when we are stuck in kam, lust, krodh, anger, and lobh, greed, then consider that the doors of Narak hell have opened. Make a timetable and determine how many moments during the day you stay in Swarg, heaven, and how many moments during the day you stay in Narak hell. Create a timetable by splitting a page into 3 columns as follows: time, Swarg, heaven, Narak hell. Write the times on the first column. For example, if you say that you woke up at 6 a.m. and had a lot of happiness from 6 a.m. to 6:30, then write 6 a.m. and 6:30 in the first column and tick the column of Swarg, heaven, in the same row. But if there was a lot of shouting and arguments from 6:30 to 8, then for those times tick the column of Narak hell in the same row. And then at the end of a 24-hour day, add the amounts up and see how many times in 24 hours you spent in Swarg, heaven, and how many times you spent in Narak hell. If you find out, then you will get the means to increase the amount spent in Swarg, heaven, in your day. This is because there is such little time. आ जिंदगी ना रसने पिवामा जल्दी करो मरेज एक तो ओची मदेरा छे ने घर तो जाम छे. Be quick to drink the juice of life, O patient. Firstly, there is very little liquor, and the drink is going down very fast. A person thinks that we have such little time. Why should we spend this time in Narak hell? Let us spend as much time as we can in Swarg, heaven. Life is not so long that we should pass it in Narak hell. Kam, lust, krodh, anger, and lobh, greed are the three doors to hell. Srimad Vallabhacharya has written it very nicely that in the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavad there is an event of the story of Diti and Kashyap. Jay and Vijay, who were the gatekeepers of Vaikuntha, the abode of Lord Vishnu, got a curse from the Sanat Kumars. The whole event is described, and when the description of its closing is given, Srimad Vallabhacharya writes in his commentary, the Subodhini, that Kam, lust, destroys karma actions, Krodh, anger, destroys Jnana, and Lobh, greed, destroys bhakti, devotion. All three, Kam, Krodh, and Lobh, lead to the ruin of the soul. So, Kam, lust, destroys karma, Krodh, anger, destroys Jnana, and Lobh destroys bhakti. The fourth line of Sri Krishna in this verse and the fourth line in the Subodhini of Srimad Mahaprabhuji are exactly the same. The consequences are very beautifully described, and he has said something very logical. First, Kam, lust, destroys karma actions. At face value, it looks like the more Kam, desires one has, then the more karma actions they will perform. But in reality, Kam, desires, burns actions. This is because when a person keeps having Kam, desires, and keeps making wishes, then he cannot fully perform actions. And those karma actions that are done under the influence of Kam, desires, will be destructive. Krodh, anger, destroys Jnana, wisdom. While describing the state of Sthita Prajna, a person's settled intelligence, in the second chapter, God said, Krodhat bhavati samoha. Samohat smriva brahma, smrit brahma sad, buddhi nasoya, buddhi nasad pranashyati. From anger arises bewilderment, from bewilderment loss of memory, and from loss of memory the destruction of intelligence, and from the destruction of intelligence he perishes. Krodh, anger, destroys Jnana. That is why you will see when a person is very angry, then if I were to say it in simple language, then he does not remember anything. When I say this, then nobody should think that smruti, memory, and Jnana, wisdom, are the same thing. But a person who is very angry will not be able to remember much. The calmer a person is, then the greater his memory power will be. Scientists have even proved that because of Krodh, anger, one's brain cells get damaged. God has given us this body where all the other cells are such that if they get damaged, then they are replaceable. If you have cut your hand and scraped your foot or something like that happens, then all these cells can be remade and they regenerate. But God has given us brain cells in one stock only. If you look after them, then it is fine. But if you do not look after them and they get damaged, then it is not possible to replace them. Despite the advance of medical science, scientists still say that you cannot regenerate brain cells. They only degenerate, they never regenerate. Krodh, anger, destroys Jnana, wisdom. And Mahaprabhuji says that Lobh, greed, destroys a person's bhakti, devotion. A person who is full of Lobh, greed, can never perform bhakti. The reason for this is that in bhakti you have to leave things. Bhakti is a relationship of love, and love always teaches us to give. Love is not getting, but giving. It is the result of pure living. Bhakti devotion is divine love. What will I get can never be bhakti devotion. What can I give and what can I do is true bhakti. But a person who is full of lobh, greed, cannot leave anything. He cannot do service with his body. He cannot do service with his mind, and he cannot do service with his dhan, wealth. A greedy person is greedy in every way. He cannot let go of anything. He cannot even give his time to provide service. Mahaprabhuji says that lobh, greed, destroys a person's bhakti, devotion. If a person does not have karma actions, jnana, wisdom, or bhakti, devotion in their lives, and all three of karma actions, jnana or bhakti, devotion have been destroyed, then if this person does not go to Narak hell, then where else can he go? This is because karma actions, jnana, wisdom, or bhakti, devotion are three paths. The person closed each and every door and each and every path with each and every fault. Go on to the next verse.